Today we are going to do something with all of those scraps. As you know, whenever you make one of my patterns, one of my Quiltoni quilt patterns, you have a lot of leftover fabrics. And one of the biggest questions I always get asked is, what do you do with all of the fabric? That's what we're going to do today. So this is all of the fabric left over that we did from our God of Mischief quilt along. I actually have a video here on YouTube that actually shows you exactly how to make this quilt and actually how to make all of my pixel quilts, basically, because I just broke it down. But then what do you do with all of this? What do you do with all the scraps, all the leftovers? That's what we're going to work on today. Now, there are a couple of things that you can do with scraps. The technique that I'm going to show you today is how to turn all of this into a solid sheet of scrappy fabric that you can then take. You can either have that be a quilt, or you can take that scrappy fabric and turn it into things. So you can turn it into a backing, you can turn it into placemats, to a throw pillow, to a bag. It then becomes a piece of fabric that you can do these things with. So the easiest way for my quilt-alongs is to separate it into 2-inch and 3.5-inch pieces. Now I'm going to also separate this by color. So in this case, I'm making sure that all of the same color of the things are together. Because whenever we sew these together, we want to make sure that all of the colored things are sewn together first. So the strategy that we're going to use is I'm going to have everything be a single long strip of fabric. I'm going to take those two strips of fabric, fold them, and basically just kind of cut it, and cut it in half, and then re-sew it, and then cut it in half, and then re-sew it. It's not just a constant let's go, 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 because there is going to be some kind of semblance to this, because we do want a nice flow to our fabric that we're creating. But the biggest thing is to get it organized. So that's the first step. So that's what I am doing now. Now, there are a few things of this. Remember, we have all of these combined pieces here. So we've got all of those combined pieces. Oops. And then that. Oh, you know what? I'm going to put that over here. And then here. And then there. 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 Now with that, we've got that goes there, those go there, that goes there. Fantastic. And those go there. Okay, now the biggest thing is figuring out strips. Now, what I want to do is I want to sew these. I want to turn all of this into one of these. So I'm going to turn all of these 2-inch strips here. So I have two options. I can take this, throw it aside, or turn those into this. Now, how I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to take all of these single pieces here, and we're going to combine those. Oh, we've got that one there. I think those are all of my pieces. Now, I may not be able to use all of this, but I'm going to see what I can use. And I think that will, you know what? No. Change my mind. Change my mind on how I want to do this. I am actually, let me put all of these back where they belong. There and there. I am going to turn this. I'm just going to sew this together and turn this into more of this. So let me do that then. So these are the same size here and the same size here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this to this, this to this, and then this to this. Once these are together, I'm going to iron it all. And then once I have this fabric here, I'm going to sew it end to end with all of this fabric. Once I do that, I'm going to do the same thing to all of this. So if I have pieces of the same color fabric, I'm going to sew it to that fabric end to end, just like this. Now, of course, if this is with your fabric, you can do anything you want with it. The whole point is that you want everything to be sewn together in some kind of 3.5-inch strips. Sounds simple, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to sew everything into a single 3.5-inch strip per thing. So in the case of this, I'm going to sew this just like this, end to end, 3.5-inch strip. Now, the other thing I'm going to do, as you see me sewing all of these strips together, is I'm going to be cutting off all the selvages. So as you see me working, going back and forth in the sped up video, back and forth to the sewing machine, you'll notice me taking the scissors. I'm going to be cutting the selvages off and then having single sheets of fabric. But as I combine these, I'll bring them back over here and show you the single sheets of all of the fabric, and then we'll start combining it. So what do you do if the seam is pointing the wrong way? So for these combined seams, remember they've already been sewn together. They have seams. What do you do if they're pointing the wrong way? Well, all you do is the same thing in the pattern. You re-iron it the way that you want it to go. Oops, I realized I did that over there and I put that over here. Ha-ha! So you re-iron it the way that you want it to go. So it doesn't matter if the seam is pointed the wrong direction. Just re-iron it, and it's fine. It's totally fine. Next step. Now we need to iron all this. So I've sewn all of these pieces together. At this point, I just want to iron it. So all I'm going to be doing is going through and ironing everything so it's a nice long strip of fabric and laying all those out. Now the ones that don't have any seams, I'm still going to iron it because I have a seam in here. So, a seam, I'm sorry, I have a fold in there, not a seam. So even though there's no seams, I still want to iron this because I want to sew it together. Now, also at this point, you should decide the order that you want the fabric to be sewn together. So I'm thinking I'm going to alternate a lot of the solids with the combos. So in this case, I like the idea of having the tan next to the black and green. So I'm going to go ahead and iron all of these. Now, the seam direction doesn't make a difference. You can iron it to the side, you can iron it open. It really, really doesn't matter. And as I'm ironing them, I'm also going to decide the order that I want them next to each other in the quilt to make it interesting. Oh, we've already done that. So that goes there. So then, let's see, what do I want next? Ooh, gold and black. Yeah, let me do that one. So I'm going to be ironing all these, deciding, and then I will come back from it sped up and show you the next step. So I'm designing my quilt as I go. So as you notice, I'm going through and I'm pulling out a bunch of different fabrics and I'm rearranging some things. Because this way, I can figure out the best way that I want my quilt to lay out. So as I'm looking, I'm like, oh wait, this is going to be interesting going here and then there. There's no right or wrong answer. There's no right or wrong way to do this. all you're doing is you're just creating huge strips of fabric that you're then going to sew together into a long, you know, piece of fabric itself. So now I've got my order. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fabric, I'm going to lay down the next one, I'm going to sew it. Then I'm going to bring this out, lay down the next one, sew it. Then I'm going to bring this out, lay down the next one, and so on and so on. Oops, let me actually bring that up a little bit. So I am laying it down, grabbing my next fabric, and sewing it. Then I'm grabbing the next oh, these two were together. Doing that, grabbing the next fabric, sewing it, and then grabbing the next fabric, sewing it, and so on. So I'm making one long, huge piece of fabric, one really long piece of fabric. And then after I make that really long piece of fabric, I'm going to come back and show you the next thing. Now, if you have done a jelly roll scrappy quilt, you may be familiar with what we've just done. We've literally just sewed it together end over end over end. Now, if you are doing a scrappy jelly roll quilt, at this point, you find the two ends, and you take those two ends, and you sew them together. So you can take these two ends right here, and then you sew them together, and when you reach the end, you cut the end, and then you sew it together, and so on and so on. You can do that with this. However, I'm going to do something else, and I'm going to show you a different technique so that your fabric can actually look a little bit cooler laid out, and it takes almost the same amount of time as the scrappy jelly roll method. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to worry about the seams at all. Whenever I sew them, they're going to do what they're going to do. But I'm going to decide how wide do I want this piece of fabric. So in my case, I think, let's see, let's cut my fabric. That's 40 inches, 44 inches. You know what? In case I decide that I want to use this as backing and not as another project, I'm going to cut 44-inch strips. And I'm going to see how long it can be. So 44 inches. So I'm just going to take it and use my scissors and cut my 44 inches. So there's one strip. Same thing. All I'm doing is I'm laying this out on my mat and folding it over at the 22. I will then, or you know what? Hey, you know what's easier? I'm just going to lay it on top of that strip. And there. And cut it. And let's just, oops, I missed it cutting one of my things. There we go. And let's take this and lay that on there. And then here, oh yeah, this one's an entire thing of the light blue. There we go. So all I'm doing is I'm taking it and I'm measuring it about that same distance and cutting it. This does not have to be perfect. Your ends do not have to be perfect. And as you see, I'm cutting through some of these colors. I also have not ironed the seams. If you really want to iron those seams, by all means, iron those seams. I personally do not care. All right, in this case, the cut was right on a seam, so I'm just going to cut that seam off. because I'm not gonna deal with it. I don't care. Oh, hey! Guys, look, it's perfect! I totally made that number up, and that math was perfect. So if you did this exact quilt, if you did the God of Mischief quilt, if you cut it at 44 inches, you're gonna have exact number of strips. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 strips now that I'm gonna sew together. So now I'm just gonna kind of like make them look nice and lay them out and see how they look together. Okay, that looks so far so good. Okay, I don't like that, so I'm going to take this and flip this over. Nope, I don't want to put that next to each other. Okay, let's do this. And see now, see what I'm doing is I'm creating I'm creating the layout in order to make it look interesting. So now I've got all my strips. So at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew them in the strips. So I'm taking my bottom one and this is my top one. I'm going to take this, flip it up over the top, and I'm going to sew these together right here along that seam. And then I'm going to then take this one here, the next one up, I'm going to flip it over. All right, here, let me actually move all of those up so I can show you. All right, so here's my bottom one. So make sure I didn't drop any, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, oh, 9. Okay, so I've got this one here. So I'm taking this, I'm flipping it up over here and sewing it in place. And then I'm going to bring it back over here and put it right back in the machine. But I'm taking this one and laying it out and sewing it. And then I'm going to flip this up, take the next one, sew it to there, and so on and so on. I'm not doing any ironing yet. I'm going to wait and iron this all when it's completely done to save some time. So that's what I'm doing now is I'm going to take these and sew them. Now, obviously, this is not big enough for backing for the quilt top, unfortunately. But it is big enough that you can use it for other things. Now, if I did want to use this for backing, if you have extra fabric in these fabrics, you can add a border all the way around big enough so that now this becomes your backing. And then you've got a special backing that's part of your quilt top. Now, you can also take this fabric and do different things with it. I have tutorials on here for dice bags, for dice trays, pillowcases, throw pillows, an apron. Oh, I think there's enough fabric in here for an apron. I'm also going to do one for an easy placemat. There's all sorts of things that you can do. So you now have some fabric that you can do it. Easy fabric. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Don't forget to like this video, follow my YouTube, as well as Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, my Quite Nerdy Quilters Facebook group, Twitch, and don't forget to share this video. I forget the whole YouTube thing of the like and share and smash that button and, you know, I'm a live streamer. I'm not, you know, all the video stuff is newish to me. But yeah, if you like it, then like it and share it. That's all I ask for. And thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to watch.